Jennifer Chenault, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Joey?
I'm doing all right, Jennifer. I'm kind of curious. I want to know how you handle a very particular situation. I've never actually said this out loud. I'm curious how this goes. Have you ever been in an environment where you're constantly running into like the same stranger over and over again? Like, how do you handle that? Because it's very awkward. You've never seen this person before in your life, and then all of a sudden they're thrust into your like world for like an intense amount of time.
You mean when you run into somebody over and over again, you kind of don't know their name or what have you?
Like the best case scenario for me is like the grocery store, right? You kind of walk in at the same time and basically you end up like grocery shopping together, but you've never met this person before and you just keep seeing them over and over again. Do you have those situations where you feel like it's socially awkward in them?
I wouldn't say I feel socially awkward. I would say that I'm really intrigued, and it does happen to me. And I usually try to make the other person feel less socially awkward. And yes, I have run into that before.
Do they go up and introduce yourself? I mean, because
I
I mean,
do.
sometimes I've thought about like, should we just swap grocery lists? Like, let's help each other out here. We're in this together.
I do, and I usually try to find something that is interesting about the person and just bring it out. Like, you like avocados too, or I mean, I haven't had it happen in a grocery store, but I've had it happen in restaurants before. I've actually had it happen where I thought I knew the person and acted
Uh,
very happy to see them, and the person never met me before. So that was more uncomfortable on my end.
I guess it's like a true like secret test of somebody's character. Were they nice about it? Did they make you feel comfortable in
Oh
this?
my gosh, they were totally nice about it. And then it was a situation. I was in a restaurant, and I don't wear my glasses often because I tend to forget them. And I looked across the way, and I would have bet my paycheck that I knew the person. So I get up and I go over and I'm like, "Hi, Sally." That wasn't the name, but and she looks at me, and then I realized I don't even know this person. And she was really lovely about it. And we laughed, and I sent her a dessert just to save, save face. But yes,
That's a nice little touch. I appreciate that. That's a good little. I think making good.
you
Somebody.
know, I
Uh,
think most people are pretty. Most people I run into are usually pretty nice about things. I do make a lot of socially awkward mistakes. I've realized.
well, I mean, and kind of speaking a little more seriously, we do run into people quite a bit, or at least traditionally in the insurance world. That was our job, is to run into people kind of over and over again in some way, shape, or form. Kind of been limited in that sort of aspect now. What's that looking like? I mean, how are you running into people now? And have you found it hard to sort of keep the frequency up?
That has been a topic of conversation ever since I think probably really beginning of last quarter. It started to really hit home with not just myself, but a lot of people on the team. And, we realized like the old way of doing things, networking, sliding your card across the table, it's just that really drove a lot of frequency and interaction. And, quite truthfully for me, either it's out of a fear of failure, or I kind of like the connection and being creative about it. But I have found really it to be the frequency of connecting with people is just different. So, for example, like with you and I on Zoom, I think we met a few years ago, and it was a phone call, and we had never met each other. But I think I look at what you do, and I look at your signature, and I look at what you're putting out, and I feel like I still know you, even though you and I have never physically met. And I try to do that with surviving in this new world. I use a lot of LinkedIn. I try to be more connected with what that individual is needing, rather than just being selfish and just wanting a connection. For me, it's been still very busy. A lot of new connections, a lot of new ways to help people, but it's also a little bit, it's uncharted territory. So I don't know how exactly this will all pan out, but so far so good, which is where I get confident.
Well, yeah, I mean, you hit on something, and I'm obviously a big proponent of the knowing you without knowing you sort of thing,
Mhm.
and that's a hard concept to get across to people that are, we'll say traditional in the business. What has that been like in the people that you've been talking to around the agency and things like that? How receptive have people been to that idea, and what sort of, I guess, methods have sort of come up into ways that you could actually do that?
One thing that we really have that's strong in our agency is that we've noticed that in the past, you could kind of get by just being friends with somebody in a way. You know, a lot of relationships are built where, you know, you have a connection, you know, your golf buddies or tennis buddies or a wine club buddy. And then that natural progression of, well, you know, let's do business together happens. And that was in the past. Now with, you know, our markets are changing. So it's getting tougher to place business. I think that the demand for quality has risen, has like a little bit like a cream to the crop, has risen up. Business owners are making decisions differently now. They're making decisions based not just on that relationship piece that I like hanging out with you, but you know, where's the quality of the team? So what we've been focusing on is specializations, is education. We've been doing a lot of cross initiatives. So I see that the buyer is searching for even a different experience, and I think that you can do that virtually.
Yeah, you know that's interesting, the quality thing, right? Because at some point, I was kind of I don't want to say afraid, but you know, when insurance companies are involved, anything can happen, right? And is that you know jeopardizing that friendship based on you know like that third party not necessarily coming through when you it's a little out of your control. That always made me nervous. Like gave me, I guess, another form of social anxiety with my friends. But you know the thing, and you talk a lot about team and having you know the right people around you to help
Yes.
really go into you know different you know situations when you're kind of going to those clients. But I guess the one thing that I was curious about, you said you know that's changing. Markets are getting you know kind of tougher to come by in terms of like their appetites and things like that. Is there sort of a moment where you notice like something that happened that said, oh, I used to get by with this, but that's not cutting it anymore, and now we've got to take it to you know this step or the next step?
Oh my God. You know, you ask really good questions, I gotta say. So I didn't grow up in insurance. You know my background. This was a mid-career move for me. I really didn't know what I was getting into. And insurance has so many layers and there's so many ways you can go. You know, I thought I could be everybody, everything to everybody. And I had this big fear of missing out, fear of missing opportunities. And so to answer your question, what I've found is I've really focused in on a couple of specializations for designations. And I think that you can be just as successful focusing in on a niche or into a specialization, and you can still touch and help others that are outside of that by using the team concept. Before, I was a generalist. You know, I would say a pure generalist. Anybody that came by, I would try to help. And that is something that worked in the past. So for example, now, like the D&O market it's going bonkers. And so I got a management liability designation, which still doesn't mean that I am up here. I still have to strive to get there. And I'm going to do that by working with one of my counterparts in Phoenix, who has a really strong D&O background. And by just focusing in on that, I think that that will create opportunities that will open up doors to other opportunities, rather than just let's talk about, you know, your insurance package, for example. Let's talk about the directors and officers market. And here are some of the pitfalls of how you're covered now, because that's rapidly changing.
Yeah, and that specification, because again, like you said, it just allows you to you know go above and beyond where you know, anybody else is sort of moonlighting. And we've had you know plenty of these conversations.
Yeah.
And what is it, I guess, about you know that space that has maybe attracted it to you? You know, like you said, coming into insurance, you know, as a we'll call it maybe a second career potentially. I guess that's fair enough to say. Of you know, from education, is there something that you find yourself gravitating towards? You know, different lines maybe that play into your personality strengths.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You know, I have a mentor. It's the person that hired me, and I worked under her for a good 4 years, and she frustrated the heck out of me with a lot of what she helped me with because I didn't get it at the time. And the more that I'm honing my skill and learning and keeping an open mind and knowing that I don't know everything. I know what I'm really good at, but there's a lot of gaps there. And she always told me, you know, don't worry so much about being everything. Find something that you really love, and then you'll be able to do whatever you want to do within that space. So to answer, you know, what am I attracted to? I'm attracted to and I don't want to, even by saying this, it's hard for me to say this because I don't want to put myself in a box, but anything that has a heart is where I get excited. So nonprofits, schools, behavioral health, federally qualified health centers, those industries in itself are areas that are generally underserved, and they're also really open to the kind of help that we can give them. So they're open to the conversation, they're open to learning more. And I'm passionate about it because if we help them with their mission and vision so that they can do the great work out in the community and they can help the children or the people that need them, then I know I'm doing a good job. And that gets me really excited.
Yeah, I guess I mean I didn't even think about it, Jennifer. But yes, your background, coming from teaching and going into talking to the educators. That I mean, I'm assuming that gives you a big advantage in terms of the way that you are able to communicate with them and be relatable to them versus just some fancy say suit coming in there trying to sell them a policy, right? Has there been anything that has stood out there in those communications that you said, oh, wait a second, yeah, this makes a lot more sense. Why haven't I been doing this more?
Oh, absolutely. I look over, I think part of when you asked about what's changing, kind of like also in networking and who do you connect with, I have so many opportunities to really get deeper in the associations that I've been a part of, but I've been so busy doing things that really didn't make any impact. So I think that just reflecting on, busy busy and productive are two different things. A big thing I'm doing is like slow down so you can speed up. Slow down and think about, I'm a member of this association, this one, this one. So what can I do to enrich those associations? But then I have to give up this, and this. And that's the challenge, because by giving up something, there's always that fear that I'm going to miss something. But that's not a truth. That's just in my own mind.
Is there anything, even just drilling down a little bit more in terms of like the things that you are focusing on productivity wise that has clicked for you that you said, oh, this is really something that I've noticed has created an uptick or really taken things to better place for me?
Really continuing to work on my signature, that's big. So I want to be the one that's in control of what people are saying about me. And in order to do that, I have to drive the messages. So I focused over the past 6 months, which I'll continue this year, really on doing more of the signature blogging, doing things like this interview with you. I mean, what an opportunity. Thank you so much. This is, I explained to somebody that part of being unique and visible and viable is really bringing something different to the table, being authentic, and being consistent. So I have to always be working on those things. And also, you have to stay humble, which is, I think, almost too easy to do, but there's a fine line between you're going to be humble, but then also being confident in here's what we can do for you as well. And it's a partnership. So this past year has been a real kind of like my brain has gone with things clicking. And I can't even imagine what next year's going to be like.
It's definitely, like you said, it's definitely a pretty thin tightrope to walk to, like maintain that edge, but still sort of, like you said, maintain that humility. I'm kind of dying to ask this question to people that, are, maybe just getting into the business or on the fringes of it that are just sort of, orbiting, paying attention to what's going on here. As somebody who was once there looking on the outside, what was it like to go through that process to say, oh no, actually, I think I can do this. It's not too late per se. I'm not too far down this one road. What gave you the confidence to make that change, to jump over and to feel, confident about it and doing it?
That was my biggest struggle, honestly. To get your swagger in a way, in my past life, I was what's called consciously competent. So what that meant in a learning environment is, you really know if you do certain activities, you're going to get a certain result, and it's a formula, and it gives you comfort, because if you I work on this many calls in this kind of industry and then this kind of close rate, you know you're going to get X result. And then you walk into this industry and there are no, I mean, there is a formula, of course, like, you know, you'll hear I have to see five new organizations a month. And if I do that, that's absolutely a great starting point because it gives you those little successes. For my first 3 years, I felt like I was a foreigner without any knowledge. I'd walk into rooms, I couldn't understand what people said. I was not allowed to talk really because every time I did say something, it was wrong. I knew I could do it, but for 3 years, it was tough but humbling. It was, you know, I went from being a director and being the one that's making decisions to working in a cubicle, working with people. And I had all these bosses. So I had all the account executives who thankfully, when I think back, who trained me, who were patient, and they would frustrate me because I wanted to say things. You know, I wanted a voice. I didn't. No, you know what? You sit, you learn, and you absorb, and then you don't make any money. So for 3 years, you have no validation that you're doing a good job. You don't know if any of this networking is making any difference. Every day you walk in, you learn something new. I had to hear that. I mean, at one point I was like, I don't want to learn anything new. I just want to feel good about one day. So you get through that, and you know what I see is I see people giving up right at that point where you break through. This is a fantastic career. I wish that, I mean, one thing I'm trying to work on is working with like the institutes to bring their curriculum to some community colleges, because we don't talk about insurance. You know, insurance allows businesses to take risk. That's the basics of it. You know, it's like you can take more risk by using insurance. Doesn't mean you have to buy every line of coverage. Everybody's success is different. For me, success was earning a vice president title. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that I get a seat at the table at MMA. It doesn't mean I have signing rights. It does, but it means something to me personally. It means that, you know, I am valid in what I do on a daily basis. I've done well this past year. Every year I do better than the previous year. I don't get pressure to do better, ever. But for me, if I do better every year, then I know I'm growing. And that's why I do the designations. And that's why I do the blogs. And that's why I do things like this. Because there's somebody else out there that's going to do it. And, you know, I want my signature to be, you know, maybe she isn't always, you know, the most eloquent or the, you know, the tied up like insurance person in the room. But heck, she's great to be around. And then, you know, if you need anything, she will go the extra mile. I will find a solution for you. It's probably not going to be me, but I will get a connection and I'll help. I think people give up too soon. And if you push through that, and it is so frustrating in the beginning, I almost gave up. I almost gave up multiple times. I got recruiters calling me to go back to education all the time. And it was like, I can easily just go back into something that is comfortable, that I work 40 hours, that I walk in, and I'm really glad I stuck it out though.
Well, Jennifer, the story started out a little scary. I wasn't quite sure, you know, when you sum it like that, you think, why does anybody ever come into insurance? But then I think we found ourselves at a somewhat happy ending. So at least that's good.
Well, I didn't mean to make it scary, but I think that the truth of the matter is that you see producers and the turnaround rate and the attrition rate for producers is so low, and it doesn't have to be. And I think that if we can look at our industry and really fix that, you know, it would be an area of opportunity. This is one recession-proof industry. And by getting through all that, you know, there's a lot of benefit once you make it through.
All right, Jennifer, I got 3 more questions for you. And the first one, very simply, what's one thing that you hope you never forget?
You know, I never want to forget that feeling when I walked into my first meeting, and they were talking about ACA, and I asked the person next to me what ACA stood for. And I never want to forget that sometimes when I think oftentimes you're talking with clients and we're in it all day long, and it's ambiguous, not, you can't touch what we're doing. And so keep that in mind.
And on the other side of that, what's one thing you still have yet to learn?
Okay, we have not enough time to answer that question. The one thing I still need to learn is that I still need to get in my mind that doing business with me is also valuable. I think I lose that sometimes. That, I bring value and I've earned that. And I need to get really comfortable with that.
All right, Jennifer, last question. If I were to hand you a magic wand of sorts to reshape, change, alter, really do whatever you want to insurance in a, we'll say, positive way, what's that thing? Where's it going and what's it doing?
Oh gosh, I could go into so many different places. I just, I wish that education and learning styles, I wish we could flatten the curve so that we could have more understanding about what we do. And that way your clients really do see you as a partner, which most of my clients I would say do. Also, if I had a magic wand, I would use it to help me with all the follow-up and thank you letters and all the things I want to do that keep me up at night. In the grocery shopping, the dog grooming, and I would probably like clone me to have 4 of me so I could do even more. But I do think that the industry is changing, and I think that we're on a track where we're going to see a lot of changes. It's forefront, and I think that really helping clients understand where their risk is and doing that in different ways. It doesn't have to be just that one time that you have that meeting, a year, and it shouldn't be. It should be as front of mind as the daily news. But you can make it fun too. It doesn't have to be boring.
Jennifer, this has been fantastic. I'm going to leave it right there.
Thank you. Good to see you.